Hi there. Welcome to my short presentation on what I've been doing for the last couple of years. I've been translating text by Bart Ligt, a Dutch anarchist and anti-militarist from the early 20th century that I think is very relevant for today and the war in progress. Maybe you know his book translated to English, The Conquest of Violence, that we are republishing, but with a lot of new translated texts that give a better idea of his actual thought and life, accompanied by a separate smaller book on the battle plan against war and war preparation that he made for the War Resisters International. Also with a lot of texts, practical in nature, that give an idea of how this battle plan came to be. He was an activist, so it wasn't something that he invented from behind the desk. In the future, I hope to publish an anarchist anthology, an anthology of anarchists anti-militarism and a case study of militarism in the Spanish Revolution, turning into the Spanish Civil War. We could use some help for the crowdfunding of the printing of the book. You can see the crowdfunder here for another couple of days. Please join in if you can and help out. The books will be published by Just Books Belfast. You can find the link on my own website, antimilitarism.org, or directly the crowdfunder for the Conquest of Violence. What are the books about? First of all, about war and how to prevent it and to stop it. In his more theoretical writings that we have gathered in the new publication of The Conquest of Violence, of course, he explores the causes of war, imperialism, capitalism, statism, and how these all work together in a dynamic. He never thought that peace was possible within the status quo and its cycle of more or less liberal democracy turned into fascism and imperialism, and then back to more liberal democracy. Peace for him was not the absence of war. So the world war that he tried to prevent has never ended, really, for him. With the focus on Bart Ligt and his texts that I think are very necessary in these times. That's the first part of what I want to talk about shortly. I'm coming up with a longer presentation in the near future. I will also try to go over the contents of the books that we are publishing now, in which perspective proposals are also addressed. And I'd like to offer some other possibilities for asking me to do workshops, write articles, and such things. As I said, the war for him has never ended. War is the continuation of policy by other means, is something he would very much agree on. So we can't separate war from peace, which means we can start preparing in peace times and do useful work and change strategies and tactics during wartime. But first, with a focus on the next war that will inevitably be the result of the status quo and its dynamics. For the contents of the books, that I tried to explain a bit more in detail. First, we go over the battle plan against war preparation, and second, we'll go over the contents of the conquest of violence in their context. In the smaller booklet on the battle plan against war and war preparation, I included a number of older texts that explain his evolution from a Protestant priest over Marxism and then to anarchism and syndicalism. A short introduction, a text, Soldiers and Workers Strike to Prevent War, so which makes clear that this pacifism, anti-militarism is very much focused on the workers and their possible power in preventing or stopping war. An excerpt from War or Revolution, a speech that he held in Den Haag. A shorter text on the anti-militarists and their means of struggle, on positive revolution, revolution and evolution, revolution and anti-militarism, war against war, what everyone can do. You can hear that it's very much a development of ideas over time. So the battle plan was published in 1934, but he was already working on practical proposals in 1918. Of course, the center point is the battle plan against war and war preparation that he presented at the War Resisters International in England in 1934. He started the meeting and his speech with the 100-minute speech, as it was labeled by then, in which he explains all the contexts and necessary definitions that are necessary to understand his practical proposals. He addresses a lot of things that also return in the Conquest of Violence, but shorter, more condensed. The battle plan, you can see that he talks about coercion and voluntarism in the anti-militarist movement, what military conscription means, women and the modern war, which was very important for him and his comrades in the time. He had always advanced the importance of women, not just in general, but specific comrades of his in the struggle. And he advises in a number of necessary strategic thinking, without which the tactical proposals in the battle plan proper make no sense. Followed by the battle plan against all war and all war preparation. The text of the battle plan starts with this quote, in which he very much accentuates the necessity of voluntary participation of people. And the battle plan itself has two main parts. First of all, in peacetime. It's the first part. And second, in times of mobilization and war, because the tactics are different in some cases and how they are applied. And both of these two main parts are subdivided both in individual action that are listed and collective actions. This is an image of how the battle plan was proposed on a large poster. This is how the battle plan is structured. It's very short. It's very condensed, and he lists all possible tactics against war that he could think of at the time, but without limiting the plan. He very much advised and called everyone to adapt the plan, to complete the plan, to change the plan, to correct the plan. It wasn't some kind of Bible that people could just follow. So he, first of all, in peacetime, which is in large parts of the world still the phase in which we are, as examples of individual action. Of course, he starts with refusal of military service. We can't go over all the proposals here, but I highlighted some of them. He advocated for the refusal of non-combatant military work in the Red Cross. He advocated for anti-militarist propaganda within the army, the navy, and the police. He called for the workers and producers to stop producing war materials of all kinds. Some of his proposals are a bit outdated. Of course, we don't speak about typesetting for printed articles anymore, but the translation to today isn't very difficult to make. These are just, he advocated very practical tactics for everyone. For example, for parents, for teachers, for journalists, for lawyers, for historians and intellectuals of all kinds, as well as for ordinary workers. And later on, he also advocates, he gives some examples for women. I won't go over all the examples and points, but you can see how practical it is. The collective actions that he proposes, some are copied from before. Here he advocates for youth organizations and women's organizations to play very specific and special roles in the process. A special focus on workers of crucial sectors, economic sectors, transport, minerals, some industries, to target our actions and our propaganda too. Also advocating systematic and reasonable sabotage as possible means. So he wasn't a pacifist in the strict sense as some use it today. He did believe that less violence was better, but he never condemned people who used spontaneous violence, while he absolutely rejected militarism in its many forms, be it red militarism or other militarism. Practical proposals like organizing a war service, alert service, which could focus on specific propaganda and information gathering. He advocated for peace crusades, as there was one a few years ago to Gaza, when the fishermen there were hunted down by Israeli military. So some of them, of his proposals, have already been adopted in the past. On common fronts and the role of anarchists within those possible fronts and the dangers of it. The role of such organizations. Part B, in times of war and mobilization, is the backside of the poster that I showed you earlier. Direct individual action in times of mobilization and war. Many of the tactics are copied from the previous part, but there are some differences. I'll just show you the plan. It's better than to read it for you. Direct collective action. In case the anti-war movement is strong enough or insufficiently strong to organize a national mobilization and a general strike. On united fronts again, disorganization, the mechanism of war, and because he believed that war is systemic within state capitalism, he very explicitly declared that the social revolution is in the end the only means to create a just world, and without justice there will never be peace. So eventually the social revolution is what we should aim at if we want to prevent war and be actual anti-militarists. Chronologically, the Conquest of Violence is also translated in as it was originally a small brochure that he wrote. The structure of it is repeated in the larger book that is published in English, but I thought it was important to have the condensed version within the practical book. Not all of his writings have aged well, namely his ideas about the war of the Nazis and the Japanese danger. He makes some predictions before the war in 1935 that would be shamed by events because he was wrong. But I didn't censor it. I didn't change it. I left it there because today, with the wars now, we can see many of the same discussions and mistakes as well within the peace movement or pacifist movement or anti-militarist movement. For the second book on the conquest of violence, it will be a large book, 500 plus pages, that contains both the old book itself, but also a larger context for the book and how it came to be. The Conquest of Violence, as the English public knows it, was written very much at the end of his life, when he was deadly tired, literally, because he died of exhaustion, because he was so active for many, many decades. So it shows in the tone of the book, The Conquest of Violence, which misrepresents his life and other ideas. It sounds very much reformist and watered down. So I included a large number of texts, an introduction, in which I highlight certain elements. I also let some of Bart's comrades, close comrades, speak. Arthur Lening, Albert de Jong, both very important within the anarcho-syndicalist international International Workers Association. His wife, on Bart Ligt, another comrade, Gena Brink, to highlight how he thought about women and education and the role of it. I give more context on revolutionary anti-militarism in the Netherlands by a text by Albert de Jong, which with whom Bart de Ligt collaborated and had conflicts for many, many years, disagreements, and an ultimate breakup on the subject of the Spanish Revolution and militarism there, and how the Dutch movement could help or participate or shouldn't help or participate. The Dutch anarchist movement very much fell apart after those breakups. So that this gives more context on the life and movement at the time of Bart de Ligt. Some texts with definitions in the organization that both Bart de Ligt and Albert de Jong were part of. Then some other texts by Bart de Ligt himself. First of all, how and why Bart de Ligt incites. It's a text that he wrote to defend himself against accusations of incitement. He was banished from a lot of provinces in the Netherlands, and he was jailed for incitement. This is part of his response. A text on anarchism and revolution. Reflections in the light of anarchist Congress in Berlin. On direct action at a peace congress of the left, where they were silenced and sabotaged, which also explains the breakup between Bart and the Marxist movement. More on revolution, anarchism, and anti-militarism. A very interesting text on Tolstoy and Gandhi, which shed a different light than people might know both on both those figures and on Bart de Ligt. A tribute to his close friend and comrade Clara Meyer-Wichmann, which also clarifies some of his own ideas. An introduction on Proudhon that he wrote for another booklet, in which he traces back the anarchist antimilitarism to Proudhon. A text on how he thinks society should be organized in a societal democracy. 2 speeches and debates about fascism and National Socialism, which is also an element of his thought and activism that is little known outside of the Netherlands. And I end with a text he wrote on the problem of the Civil War, namely in Spain, 36. And a postscript by Belgian anti-militarist and anarchist Hem Day, Marcel Dieu, followed by The Conquest of Violence as the English public knows it, and then a bibliographical essay by me on anti-militarism to social defense, which is well known in academic circles. Brian Martin and others were very interesting to read up on those updates of the anarchist anti-militarism. I try to give some perspectives and proposals, and I invite you to contact me if you want workshops or have something to ask. You're always welcome. I hope this was useful. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.